Good afternoon, I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. Welcome to Midday Prime. United States President Donald Trump has released his plan for peace in the Middle East. Basically proposed maps of Israel and the future state of Palestine. We'll take a closer look at what this plan is all about. Meanwhile, death toll due to deadly coronavirus is on the rise in China. Although no case has been reported in India, the centre is taking all precautions to tackle the infection. Now, these big stories and much more in the show up ahead. Let's begin with the big news at this hour.
Headlines is sponsored by Wonder Cement. Ek perfect shuruaat.
Union Cabinet approves medical termination of Pregnancy Amendment Bill 2020, allowing medical termination of pregnancy of up to 24 weeks. Bill to be brought in budget session of the Parliament. Cabinet also approves allocation of 30% of North Eastern Council's allocation for new projects for focused development of deprived areas. Supreme Court dismisses Nirbhaya gang rape convict Mukesh Kumar's petition challenging rejection his mercy petition by the President. Apex Court says alleged sufferings in prison can't be grounds to challenge rejection of mercy plea. Union Health Ministry issues travel advisory asking Indians to refrain from travelling to China in wake of coronavirus. Passenger screening extended to total 21 airports and all major ports. Death toll due to novel coronavirus in China rises to 132. United Arab Emirates reports first case of coronavirus. Lok Sabha Speaker convenes an all-party meeting ahead of budget session of the Parliament beginning on 31st January. Economic survey will be tabled in Parliament on 31st January, while the Union budget will be presented on 1st February. Badminton player Saina Nehwal joins Bharatiya Janata Party with her elder sister Chandranshu Nehwal. Saina says she is inspired by hard work of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. In international news, US President Donald Trump releases his Middle East peace plan, proposes an independent Palestinian state, draws condemnation from Palestine for recognizing Israeli control of West Bank and Jerusalem. And in sports, India sets a 180-run victory target for New Zealand in the third T20 International in Hamilton. Opener Rohit Sharma hits breezy half-century, becoming the first Indian batsman to reach 15 T20s within the power play. And Indian javelin thrower Neeraj Chopra qualifies for 2020 Tokyo Olympics. Neeraj makes the cut with a throw of 87.86 meters at the Athletics Central Northeast meeting in South Africa.
Headlines was sponsored by Wonder Cement. Ek perfect shuruaat.
Let's begin with the big international development that happened today. US President Donald Trump has presented his long-awaited Middle East peace plan, promising to keep Jerusalem as Israel's undivided capital. He proposed an independent Palestinian state and recognition of Israeli sovereignty over West Bank settlements, standing alongside Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House. President Trump said his proposals could be the last opportunity for Palestinians. He said no Israeli or Palestinians would be uprooted from their homes, called it a historic opportunity for Palestinians to achieve an independent state. Donald Trump said he has written to Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas in this regard. Let us now try and understand what Donald Trump's Middle East plan really is. Here's a map of Israel and Palestine, the Middle East, and we'll talk about the specifics of what the maps say. Now, this grey area that you see are referred to as Palestinian territories. Palestine, as we speak today, is not a nation. It is referred to as a Palestinian territory. Now, Jerusalem. Here, Jerusalem remains with Israel completely. President Trump has clearly said that it will remain Israel's capital. Only some far east neighborhoods in Jerusalem are going to be will be given to Palestine to make its capital. But most of Jerusalem, the holy sites, will all stay as part of Israel. There is some concession given in this plan. It has said that Al-Aqsa Mosque that is situated, which is a holy site for Muslims, it is situated in Jerusalem, which is capital of Israel, as per the United States. And that mosque, when Palestinians want to visit that mosque, they will have an easy passage to visit that mosque situated in Jerusalem, which will be completely controlled by Israel as its natural capital. Now, President Trump also speaks about state-of-the-art networks. If you can see these dark lines here, also this dotted line. So he talks about the state-of-the-art network of roads, underground tunnel, which will connect various Palestinian territories, considering that they are so scattered at different places. Basically, you have the West Bank region here, and this is referred to as the Gaza Strip traditionally. So these regions will have a state-of-the-art road network to ensure that connectivity is going to be there for a vision of the future state of Palestine. Now, US President Donald Trump also says that considering that as of now, Palestinian territory, when it becomes a nation, it will need to work on economic development. It does not have the required infrastructure. So for a period of a certain period, the Israeli ports of Ashdod and Haifa, these line Israeli territories, these 2 points that you see here, will be allowed to be used by Palestine to use the ports for international trade and other purposes. Let's come to this particular part, which is referred to as the Gaza Strip. This dotted line that you see connecting the West Bank region with Gaza, this dotted strip, according to US President Donald Trump, is going to be the state-of-the-art underground tunnel. It is going to be a distance of about 58 to 60 kilometers, an underground tunnel connecting these two core regions of the future state of Palestine. Now, US President Donald Trump also speaks about how in this deal it's a win-win situation for both Israel and for Palestine. For Palestine, he says that in fact the concessions that they require Palestine to give in terms of Jerusalem, the demands for Jerusalem, US President says that double the amount of territory in fact has been given to Palestine. So where is that extra territory? We're talking about the Negev province here. It's part of Israel. Now these two provinces are going to be given for industrial and agriculture usage. It also says, now this map, let me remind you, this map and this plan had been tweeted by the White House Twitter handle and also President Donald Trump himself. So I was talking about the Negev province where the extra territories are being given to Palestine, and these territories could be used, had been earmarked in fact for industrial development, for agricultural activity, and also in the lower half also for residential purposes for Israel. And US President also says that about $50 billion investment is going to be committed by US and its partners to develop these particular regions for industry and agriculture for the future state of Palestine if it comes into being. US President also says that because it's a new plan, it's just a suggestion as of now, Palestine will have a period of about 4 years. So these developments, state-of-the-art roads or the industrial corridor or the agricultural land, these will not be brought to action immediately. There will be a period of 4 years when the Palestinians can ponder over the suggestions that have been given as in this particular proposal. And after that, if everyone, all stakeholders agree, Israel and Palestine agree, then perhaps this map, this vision can be realized. There are some important points as well about the Israeli Jewish settlements that are already part of the West Bank region. So the dots that you see, the dark dots that you see, refer to the Jewish settlements that exist. It's part of the conflict. Now, Palestine says that West Bank entirely is Palestine region, so there should be no space for earmarked spaces or colonies or neighborhood for any other country, Israel in this context clearly. So this has been a long-drawn conflict. President Trump's plan that he suggests, he says that those colonies, those residential areas, those residential settlements, Jewish settlements are going to stay. So you see there'll be Jewish Israeli settlements embedded in the West Bank, so those settlements will stay. And another important point that President Trump has made in his vision is that Palestine is going to be a future state of Palestine, if it comes into being, is going to be a completely demilitarized nation. There will not be any military that the Palestine will have. Israel will take care of the security issues in the region. So Palestine by itself as a nation will not have any military. So that has also been underlined by President Trump. However, when I was talking about the Jewish settlements which will continue to stay in West Bank in the future state of Palestine, there is no provision for the return of displaced people. Palestinian people who may have been displaced in the earlier decades. It's an 80-year-long conflict. Who were displaced earlier, there is no way that they can go back to their original territory, which clearly now lies in most parts of Israel. So there is no provision to go back. However, people who are settled at this point in time in different parts, the Jews who are settled in Palestinian territories, or vice versa, Palestinians who are settled in Israeli territories, they will not be forced to leave. So people who are settled in different points can stay where they are. Also, important point that has been mentioned is that these ports I've already spoken about. The underground terminal I've mentioned about. This connectivity is going to be enhanced as well between the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. Those were some of the highlights of what US President Donald Trump has presented in his vision, in his solution of the Israel-Palestine conflict, the conflict that has stretched to nearly 8 decades, nearly 80 years. Those were some of the highlights. Moving on now, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has touted the Trump administration's Middle East peace plan, saying it presented a realistic path for achieving a lasting peace in the region. He expressed hope that Palestinians embrace the plan and build with Israel a future of prosperity and peace. And Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has rejected United States President Donald Trump's peace plan, vowing the plan unveiled in Washington will not pass, he says. Abbas held an emergency meeting with other Palestinian factions, including Hamas, to discuss a unified response to the plan. He said that Palestinians remain committed to ending the Israeli occupation and establishing a state with its capital in East Jerusalem. Meanwhile, thousands of Palestinians protested in the Gaza Strip against President Donald Trump's peace plan. Images of protest there. Also, international reactions have been pouring in on this major development. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has said that UN remains committed to supporting Palestinians and Israelis in resolving their conflict on the basis of UN resolutions, international law and bilateral agreements. UN chief said United Nations is also committed to realizing the vision of two states living side by side in peace and security within the recognized borders on the basis of pre-1967 borders. And top EU diplomat Joseph Borrell said that bloc will study and assess Trump's proposals on the basis of its commitment to a negotiated and viable two-state solution that takes into account the legitimate aspirations of both Palestinians and Israelis. British Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab urged the Palestinians to give the plans a genuine and fair consideration and explore whether they might prove a first step on the road back to negotiations. Meanwhile, Jordan has warned against any Israeli annexation of Palestinian lands and reaffirmed its commitment to the creation of Palestinian state along the 1967 lines that would include all the West Bank and Israeli annexed East Jerusalem. And Egypt called the two concerned parties to undertake a careful and thorough examination of the United States' vision to achieve peace and open channels of dialogue. And to talk about this major development, joining me in the studio is our Foreign Affairs correspondent, Mr. Ramesh Ramachandran. Thanks, Ramesh, for joining us. Now, how do you see President Trump's administration, United States, approaching this 80-year-old conflict?
Allow me to put this in context for our viewers, Shubhendu. Now, this is a protracted issue which has been hanging fire for, as you mentioned in that report, for nearly 8 decades, 8 years and counting.
Right.
This began with the formation of the State of Israel in 1948, and since then we've seen many people die for the cause of each other's statehood. We've seen it generate political tensions in the region and beyond. This has been a festering issue for many, many decades now, and Trump since coming to power in 2016, has spoken about a deal of the century, what he calls deal of the century, meaning his attempt to foster peace between Israel and Palestine and to put this issue to bed for once and for all. But the crucial question is, will this lead to peace or not? And the suspicion is that it might not. Why? If you look at those map again, Shubhendu, one, the fact is that the Palestinians were not present in Washington, D.C. yesterday when Trump and Netanyahu were present for the event, number one. Number two, Palestinians have always wanted a state with the 1967 border, number one. Number two, the right of return of the refugees who had gone out in 48 and afterwards. And also the right to return, besides the right to return, the West Bank should be given to them, and East Jerusalem should be their capital of Palestinian state. And that is not mentioned categorically in the peace plan presented by Trump. So it's a moot point whether this might lead to peace eventually or not, but the Palestinians have rejected this peace deal altogether.
Also, Ramesh, the vision of Palestine, future state of Palestine that President Donald Trump's administration presents, it's a curious one. There is no other country that would exist in that manner if it does really come into being. It's a nation within a nation in which also are going to be embedded Israeli-Jewish settlements. So that really makes the vision of Palestine rather complex in this vision.
Indeed, and Shubhendu, the answer lies in your question itself. As you mentioned, the talk here is about the quote-unquote future state of Palestine. So what we are seeing happening today is that Israel has agreed to boundaries of the state of Israel, but they have left the state of Palestine to a future date, conditioned them upon demilitarizing the state of Hamas and other groups, and also making them agree to the conditions set forth in the peace plan. So we're talking about two different states, Shubhendu. One, the state of Israel with defined borders, but Palestine, there is no defined borders. We don't know for a fact what the state of Palestine will eventually contain, is acceptable to them or not.
Ramesh, also, is it a coincidence that both President Trump, who's facing impeachment in the United States, and Prime Minister Netanyahu is facing political challenge in his own country? Elections did not yield much result. And at this point in time, this particular plan is put forth. Is there any connection?
Now, that's a very interesting question, Shubhendu, and the answer perhaps lies in the fact, as you mentioned, that both these two leaders, Trump and Netanyahu, are dealing with domestic crises at home. Trump with impeachment, and Netanyahu has yesterday been indicted by the Israeli court for investigations into corruption allegations. So these are two beleaguered leaders who are both looking forward to re-election. Remember, Israel goes back to the polls in March this year, and the US in November. So clearly, they must have their domestic constituents in mind when both leaders came together in DC yesterday to unveil the Middle East peace plan.
Right. And Ramesh, when the United States President presents a certain plan for peace in any region of the world, it is bound to make news. We're also discussing it. But where is the international credibility for it? What is the road ahead? Does the international community, United Nations, do they need to ratify it? What is the road ahead for this plan that has been proposed?
Now, that's a million-dollar question, Shubhendu. We've seen history repeat itself. In 1993, we saw the US bring together Israel and Palestine in Washington, in the US, for the peace accord. But since then, we've seen the peace accord fizzle. So we are back to square one. We are back to the drawing board all over again. But this time, Israel says this is a deal, take it or leave it. Now, that puts a pressure, a challenge to the Palestinians in the sense that they want to accept this or deal with a future state which might not be to their liking. So that's the big challenge facing the world today. And we've already heard from many countries in the region and beyond, namely the Jordan king, who has rejected the peace proposal. The Palestine President Mahmoud Abbas has rejected it. That's nonsense. We've heard it from EU leaders in Brussels. So all in all, there's the opinion is divided between the US on the one hand and European Union leaders, Palestine and the Arab world on the other hand.
And finally, Ramesh, what has been the Indian stand traditionally? We know that in the past 5-6 years, India-Israel ties have seen unprecedented high. Also, India maintains its consolidation, its sort of support to Palestinians' right to have a nation of their own. So what has been traditionally India's stand, and what is the road forward for India on this matter?
Interesting, Shubhendu. Now, Prime Minister Modi is one world leader, an Indian leader, who has devoted considerable amount of time, energy and effort to reach out to all countries in the region, including Israel, including Palestine, including Jordan, including Saudi Arabia and Iran as well. So he follows a policy, what he calls Link West policy. By that he means that he wants to reach out to all countries in the region beyond political divides, beyond partisanship, and reach out to all countries in the hope that India can develop ties with all countries in the region, be it Saudi Arabia or Iran, and Israel or Palestine. So we saw it happen in the last several years. Mr. Modi traveling to all countries, including Israel and Palestine. So India follows a policy of not interfering or not meddling in their affairs, and have left it to both Palestine and Israel to sort it out amicably and bilaterally.
Right, Ramesh, there. Thanks very much for joining us for this conversation. We'll have to wait and watch what happens to this peace plan that President Donald Trump has proposed, and what happens to the possibilities of peace in the conflict-driven region that has been craving for peace and development in the Middle East, West Asia for us. Moving on to our next big story, the deadly coronavirus continues to wreak havoc in China, with 25 new fatalities deaths reported from central Hubei province, taking the death toll to 132. The confirmed infection cases to nearly 6,000. Experts have warned that the epidemic may reach its peak in the next 10 days, resulting in large-scale casualties. 5,974 confirmed cases of pneumonia caused by novel coronavirus had been reported in 31 provincial-level regions in China so far. 1,239 patients remained in critical condition. 9,239 people were suspected to be infected with the virus. Till now, all of Chinese provinces reported the virus cases, posing a major challenge for health authorities to contain it, to find a cure. A total of 59,990 people were still under medical observation in China. Hubei, the epicenter of the virus, has reported 840 new confirmed cases. It is an indication that the virus continues to spread at a faster rate. China, meanwhile, has ramped up efforts to contain the virus. The country has extended the New Year festival holidays till February 2nd to prevent reverse migration of millions of migrant workers to return to their work after holidays. Universities, primary and middle schools and kindergartens across the country will postpone the opening of the spring semester until further notice. Beijing has also launched temperature detection at 55 subway stations, including stops at railway stations and Beijing Airport. Meanwhile, the virus continues to spread worldwide. Now, UAE has reported its first case of coronavirus. UAE Ministry of Health and Community Protection said that a family coming from Wuhan in China to UAE was found affected by the virus. Thermal screenings have been put up at major airports in that country. Back home in India, a man has been hospitalized in Goa as a precautionary measure for possible exposure to novel coronavirus during his recent visit to China. Several people have been kept under observation in several states, including Kerala, Kolkata and Maharashtra, following screening for a possible exposure to the respiratory virus, which has spread in China. The centre has stepped up vigil, meanwhile, in areas bordering Nepal in view of confirmed cases of novel coronavirus detected there, but so far there is no confirmed case of coronavirus in India so far. The Ayush Ministry has issued an advisory for coronavirus. In a press release, the ministry has described about various medicines from traditional Indian medicines of Ayurveda, Unani and also homeopathy for prevention of coronavirus infections. The press release suggests many concoctions that can be taken to prevent infection. World Health Organization WHO is continually monitoring the new coronavirus and novel coronavirus developments. WHO Chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, who made a two-day visit to China, met with Chinese President Xi Jinping as well as the health and foreign ministers. China has also agreed that the World Health Organization could send international experts to the country in an effort to increase understanding of the virus and also guide the global response to the outbreak. He talks about sharing of data and other biological material that could be critical in making sure that the disease is dealt with. China leaders discussed on the continued collaboration on containment measures in Wuhan, public health measures in other cities and provinces, conducting further studies on severity and transmissibility of the 2019 coronavirus, continuing to share data, share biological material as well. Now, according to WHO spokesman, a better understanding of the virus's ability to spread from person to person was urgently needed in order to advise other countries where the cases have been detected. WHO can reconvene the International Health Regulation Emergency Committee on very short notice as needed. Committee members are on standby and are informed regularly of the developments. Meanwhile, Ministry of Health in India has tweeted infographics on frequently asked questions on the epidemic of coronavirus, ranging from information on what is coronavirus to its causes, symptoms, and the core, very important preventive measures. Ministry of Health has put out the answers on the important questions in order to spread awareness. So these are the messages that have been given out on Twitter. These are some of the important Twitter messages. What is coronavirus? 2019 coronavirus is a new virus identified in Wuhan, Hubei province. So important data has been given about it. What is the source of 2019 coronavirus? It originated in Wuhan, China, Hubei province in particular. That is the epicenter of the coronavirus that the health ministry is speaking about. About initial symptoms refer to fever, cough and difficulty in breathing. And on the question of has anyone in India being found infected, the answer is no, there is no confirmed case in India so far. So these are some of the important frequently asked questions that have been responded to by the health ministry. Let us look at some more questions. How does the virus spread? There is no confirmation of any specific means, but the manner in which flu or other cold infections spread through a person sneezing and others inhaling those viruses and infections, that is the manner in which the respiratory mode in which the infection is likely to spread is what has been highlighted by the health ministry. However, there is no documented medical method in which the spread is documented. What is the government of India is doing about checking the infection? 24/7 health line has been issued by the government so that people can report in case they have any symptoms that have been highlighted. Also, the government will provide all the updated information. This is also one of the means. Through Twitter, they're doing that. Is there any vaccine that is available for protection from coronavirus? Currently, the study is still on, but there is no vaccine that is available to protect against coronavirus. Only the symptoms are being treated at various medical institutions. So again, some important questions, frequently asked questions by the government. How can I protect myself from coronavirus? Well, there is, as we mentioned, no vaccine. So you can't take a vaccine to protect yourself from coronavirus, but you can observe other means. You can observe a good personal hygiene, practice frequent hand washing with soap, cover your mouth when you're coughing or sneezing. And these are, if you notice, these are common means in which any infection can be avoided by people. So the same general preventions are to be followed. What do I do if I come in contact with someone who is a confirmed case of coronavirus? Well, you should monitor your health for at least 28 days. Report your symptoms to the nearest medical institution, nearest hospital. Fever, cough and shortness of breath are the core symptoms that you should particularly watch out for. Again, there's some FAQs given out by the health ministry to deal with the coronavirus precaution. Is it safe to travel to Wuhan, China or other countries where this virus has originated and is spreading? Well, the government says all non-essential travel to China is to be avoided. It has in fact revised this particular advisory. It has said absolutely refrain from traveling to China because it is, considering it is Wuhan and Hubei province in particular is the origin, and the Chinese administration itself is working towards containing and dealing with the crisis. So Indians should avoid going to China at the moment. What are the treatments that are available? No specific treatment that is available. It's a virus antiviral treatment is being given to patients who are diagnosed with the symptoms, and also symptoms are being treated. There is no vaccination, any particular medicine to deal with coronavirus at the moment. So some of the important frequently asked questions that are there. All right, so now we connect with my colleague Anshuman Mishra, who's based in Beijing, China, to get some updates from there. Anshuman, the death toll has been rising each day. How is China dealing with the crisis of coronavirus at the moment?
Yes, Shubhendu. If we talk about the death tolls in the last week, or in fact last 3-4 days, if we see every day the death toll increases by around 25, 30, 35 when you wake up in the morning.
Right.
So today it has reached 132, and the government will again update us in the midnight. They update the death toll. So it has become a serious problem across China, and especially Hubei province. If I talk about the national capital, China's national capital, Beijing city, the infections, infectious number of infections has crossed 100, and one death has also been reported. So to tackle all these, China is just rushing medical supplies, medical staff and doctors to Hubei province from all the nearby provinces, from various cities. Meanwhile, in Beijing also, Shubhendu, I would like to tell you that during 2003 SARS outbreak, China has constructed one very big hospital that was constructed only in 7 days, Xiaotangshan. Looking at the number of infections in Beijing, that hospital has been decided to reopen that hospital after 17 years, because that was a main pillar during the SARS outbreak. And on the models of these hospitals, in Wuhan also 2 makeshift hospitals have been constructed, and that is supposed to be completed in a span of 7 days. In fact, the first hospital, which is a 1,000-bed hospital, that is supposed to come into operation from 3rd of February, and that will be under military doctors' management. So this is how they are trying. They have stopped all the exit and entry processes from Wuhan and many other provinces also. Many countries have cancelled their flight operations with China. Hong Kong, Macau, these special administrative regions, they have also sealed their borders with China. So the focus is on stopping the movement of the infections, and Chinese scientists are hopeful. The lead scientist of China, Mr. Zhang Nongchen, he is hopeful that in next 10 days they should peak, and then there should be deceleration in the number of infections, and after that it should decrease.
All right, Anshuman, what can you tell us about? What can you tell us about Indians based in China, particularly Wuhan, that has been completely quarantined? We know a lot of Indian students are based in Wuhan. Some of them returned, some still are there. What kind of support is extended to them by the embassy? And what about the evacuation plan that External Affairs Minister spoke about yesterday?
Yeah, Shubhendu, if I take you a little back, maybe 10 days back, when there was no announcement of travel restrictions. So many Indians had left Wuhan for India for this Spring Festival holidays, and many were staying there in their universities like a normal day. Though the number of infections were largest in the Wuhan, there was no panic. But as soon as the local government announced about this stopping of the movement, exit and entry, the sort of panic got into the minds of all the foreigners, in fact. So that's how, and meanwhile there were some reports that the essential grocery supplies and all those things were little less. But then it has been maintained by Chinese government, and government of India is also in constant touch through its consular department here with all the Indians. 3 hotlines are there, and they are tackling more than maybe in hundreds, in 200, 300 calls daily, and they try to assuage their fears, and if there are any issues, they are trying to take it up with the Chinese government. The evacuation request has been made with the Chinese government. The Embassy of India is still waiting for a firm response, for a confirmation, because Chinese government also, there are a lot of countries who have made their evacuation request, and it's the first come, first served sort of, because all the arrangements have to be made by Chinese side for a dedicated corridor from the city to the airport, and all the disinfection measures and all. So it's in the process, Shubhendu.
Right, Anshuman, appreciate you joining us with all those inputs. Thanks very much, and stay safe in China. Well, news just coming in. External Affairs Ministry has in fact come up with an important update. I'll request my panel to give me that update. News that's coming in from External Affairs Ministry said that India has been consistently supportive of the Palestinian cause. India has also called for two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict issue. And ME has said, we reiterate our view that final status issue should be resolved through direct negotiation between the two stakeholders, be acceptable to both as well. We urge the parties to engage with each other, including on the recent proposals put forward by United States, and find an acceptable two-state solution for peaceful coexistence. ME has said, we will continue to follow developments in the region and engage with the parties concerned. So this important notice coming out from the MEA in view of US President Donald Trump presenting his vision of what could be a possible solution to Israel-Palestine conflict. He presented a map that we discussed a short while ago. MEA, India maintains its position that the stakeholders, key stakeholders, must decide the final outcome, Israel and Palestine. Moving on, ahead of the budget session of Parliament, government has convened an all-party meeting on Thursday to ensure smooth transaction of business in both houses of Parliament. Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla has also called an all-party meeting on Thursday evening. During the meet, Mr. Birla will seek cooperation from the floor leaders of different parties in Lok Sabha to ensure smooth transaction of business in the lower house. Rajya Sabha Chairman M. Venkaiah Naidu is also scheduled to hold an all-party meeting on Thursday. The first phase of the budget session of Parliament will start from Friday and will continue till 11th of next month. After a recess of nearly a month, the session will resume from 2nd of March and will go on till 3rd of April. Moving on, Shahid Abu Bakr Trustee Rehab India Foundation and Popular Front of India, that's PFI, Delhi President Muhammad Parvez Ahmad went to Enforcement Directorate office after being summoned by the agency. PFI advocate K.C. Nazir said they went to seek time of 2 months as their chairman is suffering from cancer and is unable to come due to health issues. The Enforcement Directorate on Tuesday summoned 7 office bearers of PFI and an NGO linked to it in connection with money laundering probe against them. The office bearers of Kerala-based Popular Front of India and those from Rehab India Foundation were asked to depose before the investigating officer of the case in ED on Wednesday. The summons were issued under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act by the ED. Development comes in the backdrop of Enforcement Directorate finding that the recent violent protests in Uttar Pradesh and other parts of the country against Citizenship Amendment Act had an alleged financial link with PFI, and the organisation terming it as baseless. PFI was booked by the ED under PMLA, Prevention of Money Laundering Act, in 2018. Anti-CAA activist Sharjeel Imam was brought to Delhi from Bihar. He was arrested on Tuesday by Delhi Police's crime branch from Bihar's Jehanabad in sedition case for allegedly making inflammatory speeches in Jamia Millia Islamia and Aligarh. He triggered a row after a video of him giving a call to split Northeast region from India went viral. Imam was heard saying in an audio clip that Assam should be cut off from the rest of India. An FIR was registered against him by Delhi Police on January 25th under IPC sections 124 relating to sedition and 153A promoting or attempting to promote disharmony or feeling of enmity on grounds of religion, race, place of birth, residence, language, caste, or community, or any other ground whatsoever, among others. Senior diplomat Harshvardhan Shringla expressed gratitude as he was appointed the new Foreign Secretary of India. He becomes 33rd Foreign Secretary of the country, replacing Vijay Gokhale, 1984 batch Indian Foreign Service officer. A fluent speaker of French, Harshvardhan Shringla served as an ambassador to Bangkok from 2014 to 2016 and later as High Commissioner to Dhaka for 2 years. Harshvardhan Shringla has also served at UNESCO, in France, United Nations, in New York, besides Vietnam, Israel and South Africa. He was also ambassador to the United States.
For me, both a great honor and a truly humbling experience to be taking over as the Foreign Secretary of India. In doing so, I'm conscious of the fact that I'm stepping into the shoes of my illustrious stalwarts and seniors who have upheld the highest standards of professionalism and integrity to their work.
Opposition Congress-led United Democratic Front MLAs today tried to block Governor Arif Mohammed Khan's arrival in Kerala Legislative Assembly. The incident took place when the governor was arriving to the Assembly Hall for presenting the policy address. The watch and ward personnel later removed the opposition members, clearing Governor's way to the dais. When Khan began his policy address, the opposition members walked out of the Assembly Hall.
To honor his wish, I disagree, but to honor his wish, I am going to read this para.
Badminton player Saina Nehwal has joined Bharatiya Janata Party. 29-year-old, who hails from Haryana and is settled in Hyderabad, is former world number one. She has also won numerous international titles, including a bronze at the Olympics. She joined the BJP at its headquarters in New Delhi in presence of senior party leaders.
काफ़ी टाइटल्स जीते हैं और स्पोर्ट्स फील्ड में काफ़ी हद तक अपने देश का नाम रोशन किया है और आज मैं एक ऐसी पार्टी में मैंने ज्वाइन किया है जो देश के लिए इतना अच्छा करती है। मैं एक बहुत ही हार्ड वर्किंग पर्सन हूँ और मुझे हार्ड वर्किंग पर्सन बहुत पसंद है एंड आई कैन सी कि नरेंद्र मोदी सर जो दिन रात इतनी मेहनत करते हैं और कंट्री को देश के लिए इतनी मेहनत करते हैं, तो उनके साथ मैं कंट्री के लिए कुछ कर सकूं तो ये मेरा सौभाग्य होगा।
In Nirbhaya gang rape and murder case, Supreme Court has dismissed the plea of a death row convict Mukesh against rejection of mercy petition by President. The Apex Court has said that relevant records, verdict of trial court, High Court, Apex Court in Nirbhaya case were placed by MHA before President. Dismissing Mukesh's plea, the upper court said that alleged sufferings in jail can't be grounds to challenge rejection of mercy plea by the President. The court said expeditious disposal of mercy plea doesn't mean non-application of mind by the President. Today the Apex Court rejecting the plea by the convict Mukesh.
खारिज हुई है। ये मुकेश सिंह के लिए ये उसका जितना भी रिलीफ था वो कोई भी पिटीशन अब उसकी पेंडिंग नहीं है कहीं पर भी, और फर्दर अब ये एक बैन लग गया है कि जुडिशियल रिव्यू जो प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ इंडिया ने जो इसका मर्सी रिजेक्ट किया था उसके बाद जुडिशियल रिव्यू एक प्रोसेस का पार्ट था। ये कोई उसकी मैंडेटरी रेमेडी नहीं थी कि उसको दी ही जाएगी, ये कोई कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल रेमेडी नहीं थी। तो जो 4 कन्विक्टेड में से मुकेश सिंह था अब उसके पास कोई भी रिलीफ नहीं है, कहीं पर भी कुछ भी उसको रिलीफ नहीं मिलेगी क्योंकि ये लास्ट था जुडिशियल रिव्यू।
Nirbhaya's mother has welcomed the decision of the Supreme Court. She said now everyone has understood that these petitions are coming just to delay capital punishment.
सही फैसले सही हो रहे हैं, कोर्ट भी समझ रहा है, सब समझ रहे हैं कि नहीं ये जानबूझ के ऐसे एक एक करके पिटीशन कर रहे हैं, केस को डिले कर रहे हैं, तो कोर्ट भी अपना काम कर रहा है और मुझे पूरा उम्मीद है कि इनको 1 फरवरी को फांसी होगी।
And my colleague Vikas is joining us with more updates from the Supreme Court. Vikas, what is the road ahead now that the Supreme Court has dismissed the plea of convict Mukesh?
Well, Shubhendu, so far as Mukesh Singh is concerned, now the judicial process has already, you can say, completed when Supreme Court dismissed that curative petition filed by Mukesh. Though there was another option available to him, that was mercy plea. He filed a plea which was rejected by the President of India. Then again, he approached the Supreme Court, and now Supreme Court has clearly said that there is no reason for Supreme Court to intervene in the President's order. Whatever arguments placed on the behalf of petitioner, Supreme Court refused to entertain those arguments. In fact, court said that speedy decision doesn't mean that there was no application of mind. In fact, a delay on the decision of on a mercy plea could be a ground for intervention of the Supreme Court. But where the decision has been taken expeditiously, then it cannot be said that it is a ground for seeking any kind of relief from the Supreme Court. So for Mukesh, all the options he has already exhausted all those options. In fact, his lawyers may also file a review petition for the against this order as well, because it's still their legal remedy. But it cannot be said that on the basis of those petitions, whether review petition in this matter or curative petition will anyway stay the proceedings already going on. Like other three convicts will have to file their mercy plea before the president, and out of those three convicts, two are yet to file their curative petition. We learned that one of them have already filed a curative petition yesterday, but it has not been taken up by the Supreme Court as of now. So now the Supreme Court is supposed to decide these two curative petitions, and then all these rest of the three death row convicts will file their mercy plea. Then it will be more clear whether the death warrant will be issued for some other date or not, because whatever now has been placed before the Supreme Court has rejected those arguments, and everything depends on when rest of the convicts file their mercy plea. Then we will be able to know whether the death warrant will be issued for further date, because now there is a already pending death warrant of 1st of February, which is very unlikely to be executed, because there is a mandatory 14 days period must be given for a death row convict when his mercy plea is rejected, and 3 mercy plea are yet to be filed. So the 1st Feb death warrant may not be executed, and it may be postponed further.
All right, Vikas, thanks very much for joining us with those inputs from the Supreme Court. Thanks, Vikas. Moving on, Padma Awards, one of the highest civilian awards in the country. The awards are given in various fields of activities like art, social work, science, education, sports and so on. These awards are announced on the occasion of Republic Day every year. DD News got a chance to interact with some of these awardees regarding their journey and the experience. Take a look.
Very happy to support someone who is trying to do a work, and we have large number of very dear well-wishers who, even if they have not come to Arunachal, with great heart they support our volunteers and continue. Even when our volunteers are in faraway places like Coimbatore, in Tamil Nadu, Chennai, these well-wishers support them. So it's been a great experience working with so many people, young as well as old, within Arunachal, those who did not know English, those who knew English. But it's a wonderful experience. So I consider it's an honor, not just for an individual, it's for the entire children of Arunachal and the volunteers of the library movement.
The whole world knows me as the Elephant Doctor of Asia, and it's such an honor being associated with elephants. I consider myself very lucky, honestly. One species is dependent on the other species. So we should not allow, or we should not make it happen that certain species become extinct. In this century, last century, there is a very high rate of extinction. If the extinction rate continues like this, we are approaching a holocaust.
Time now for updates from the world of business and finance. My colleague Nancy is joining us now. Nancy, over to you.
Thanks, Shubhendu. Yes, all the business news, and in fact the coronavirus outbreak in China has emerged as the biggest global worry at the moment, and it may have adverse implications for travel, trade and markets alike. The global markets in fact are on the edge as coronavirus spreads, and there is volatility in Indian and global markets in view of the virus scare. And benchmark indices paid some of the gains in a swift move in today's afternoon session, but was still trading almost 0.5% higher. The BSE Sensex was up 188 points or 0.46% at 41,155 levels. Bajaj Finance, ITC and Nestle India all over 2% were the top gainers in the Sensex pack. And on the other hand, TCS slipped over 1%. The broader Nifty index gave up the psychological level of 12,150 and was trading around 12,120 levels, up 62 points or 0.5%. All the Nifty sectoral indices except Nifty Pharma Index were trading in the green. The Nifty Metal, Nifty Auto and Nifty Realty indices were also up over 1%. And talking about the gold and silver prices, well, those have fallen today, extending their sharp decline of the previous session. And on the MCX, February gold futures fell 0.42% or 169 rupees to 40,073 rupees per 10 grams. In the previous session, gold had declined 0.85% or 345 rupees per 10 grams. Silver futures on the MCX fell 0.32% to 45,329 rupees per kilogram after slumping over 3% in the previous session. A stronger rupee also pushed gold prices lower. Apart from coronavirus, gold traders will also be focusing on the monetary policy announcement by the US Fed Reserve. And that's all the business news this afternoon. Shubhendu, it's back to you for the rest of the news.
Thanks, Nancy, for joining us with those inputs. Let's now look at some international stories. In a gathering in New Jersey, United States, President Donald Trump said to his supporters that Democrats are obsessed with demented hoaxes, crazy witch hunts and deranged partisan crusades. His words reached the Garden State's Republicans shortly after Trump's legal team in President's impeachment trial wrapped up its opening arguments with an appeal for a quick acquittal.
Democrats are obsessed with demented hoaxes, crazy witch hunts, and deranged partisan crusades. It's all they know how to do. They do nothing, Democrats. You have criminals that on the street that should be taken the hell out of our country and brought back to where they came from.
Earlier, Trump's lawyers wrapped up the final day of opening arguments in the impeachment trial. The crucial question of calling trial witnesses, including Bolton, still unresolved in a Senate control. The president's fellow Republican and almost certain to vote to keep him in office as he seeks re-election on November 3rd this year. White House counsel Pat Saplon concluded the argument, but not before calling on the senators to reject the articles. A university student, Kelly Moreira of Brazil, has come up with a novel way to generate electricity with just paper, graphite and steam. Moreira was able to power up 60 LED bulbs by joining together 20 square pieces of paper painted with graphite, and the cost of the materials to generate this amount of power is estimated at about 5 cents. The mechanics behind the invention are simple yet powerful. Energy is produced from water molecules present in the air in the form of steam. This is then captured with the graphite lace paper that are piled together, and from this electricity flows. Although still in its quite nascent stage, Moreira hopes the idea behind her invention could be magnified, improved for homes and future. Time now for all the action from the world of sports. My colleague Anil Thomas is joining me now. Anil, over to you.
Well, thank you, Shubhendu. First up, India versus New Zealand, third T20 that's currently on at Eden Park. New Zealand paceman Hamish Bennett took 3 wickets to put Rohit Sharma's half-century in a shade as the host restricted India to 179 for 5 in 20 overs in the third T20 in Hamilton. Hamish Bennett nabbed 2 wickets in 3 balls to remove Rohit Sharma and Shivam Dube early on, and then claimed the prize wicket of Indian skipper Virat Kohli in the 19th over as India never really got going after the initial flourish. Rohit Sharma made 65 of 40 deliveries, and Manish Pandey's 14-run cameo along with Ravindra Jadeja's 10 of 5 held India reach a challenging total in the end. New Zealand need 180 runs to stay alive in the series. New Zealand in reply have started their innings on a much positive note. They have lost 2 quick wickets there, 55 for the loss of 2 wickets. Mitchell Sadner and captain Kane Williamson there in the middle, the 2 wickets to fall. The 2 openers back in the pavilion. Colin Monroe there back in the pavilion, the second wicket to fall. Both the wickets going to, one going to a spinner, one going to a pacer. Ravindra Jadeja and Shardul Thakur picking the 2 wickets for India. Well, moving on now, after recovering from an elbow injury, ace Indian javelin thrower Neeraj Chopra has qualified for the Tokyo 2020 Olympics with a throw of 87.86 meters at the Athletic Central Northeast meeting in South Africa. This was the Olympic medal hopeful's first competitive event after recovering from the injury. The Athletic Federation of India, that's the AFI, also said that they have confirmed with their South African counterparts that this was a recognized international meet and hence the Olympic cut has been made. Neeraj's last major international competition was the 2018 Jakarta Asian Games last August, where he won the gold medal with a national record of 88.06 meters. Well, moving to the first Grand Slam of the year, the Australian Open, Alexander Zverev is through to a Grand Slam semi-final for the first time, beating Stanislaus Wawrinka in 4 sets at the Australian Open. The German, seeded 7th, beat his Swiss 3-time Grand Slam champion in 4 sets, 1-6, 6-3, 6-4, 6-2, dropping a set for the first time in Melbourne this year. He lost the first 5 games in only 16 minutes, but bounced back to convert 5 out of 13 break points. The 22-year-old will meet either Rafael Nadal or Dominic Thiem in the last 4. Meanwhile, in the other semi-final that's currently on, between Rafael Nadal and Dominic Thiem, Rafael Nadal is leading 5-3. On to the women's half, Simona Halep brilliantly took apart Annette Kontaveit in just 53 minutes to race into the Australian Open semi-finals. Estonian Kontaveit won the first game but was never in it from the point as Halep raced to a 6-1, 6-1 win. The Romanian will face Spaniard Gabriel Muguruza in the last 4 in Melbourne. Gabriel Muguruza, a 2-time Grand Slam champion herself but unseeded in this particular tournament, beat Russia's Anastasia Pavlyuchenko in straight sets 7-5, 6-3 to book a semi-final meeting. Well, that's all in sports. Back to Shubhendu for more.
Thanks, Anil, for joining us with the sports inputs. Let's now find out what's in store in Live Prime today. As they say, age is just a number. You're never too old to dance, proving the wise old saying. 82-year-old Russian Maya Kachina and Lev Kitayev enjoyed charming elderly audiences in Moscow with their dance moves. With wardrobes full of sparkling costumes and cabinets packed with trophies, dancing has given the pair a new life. To keep in good shape, stay flexible and keeping strength outstanding, the pair exercises every day, dances every day. Over the decades, Kachina and Kitayev has developed a close relationship, enabling them to pull some of their most riskiest moves without falling or getting hurt. What an inspiring couple. And with that, we conclude this edition of Midday Prime. Namaskar.